The party pushing for impeachment was the Republican Party. And in Cut 9, you might recognize a few voices. Maybe Chuck Schumer, maybe Nancy Pelosi, maybe Jerry Nadler. Listen to this walk down memory lane, courtesy of Team Trump.
It is simply antithetical to our constitutional democracy to use impeachment to overturn an election on partisan grounds.
I think it has traumatic impact on the confidence that the American people have in government.
The effect of impeachment is to overturn the popular will of the voters, as expressed in a national election.
Their hatred of the president exceeds their caring about this country and its people.
It would trample upon the choice made by the people through the electoral process and do great harm.
The people elected the president. They still support him. We have no right to overturn the considered judgment of the American people.
But what the American people are saying loudly, clearly, is let's get on with the business of the American people.
Impeachment of a president is an undoing of a national election.
It violates the independence of the presidency, and it usurps the people's voice.
They are ripping asunder our votes. They are telling us that our votes don't count, and that the election must be set aside.
Send a message through the ballot box. That's what we do in this democracy.
I'm concerned that if we don't impeach this president, he will get reelected.
That last clip was from this past year. The member of the House Democrats saying he's worried that if they don't throw the president out of office, he'll win again. So in addition to Nadler and Pelosi and Schumer, you also may have recognized the voice of Uncle Joe. Joe Biden also in there. And the theme over and over again from the Dems in 1998, 20 years ago? Ish? Was if you impeach Bill Clinton, you are undoing an election. You are overthrowing the will of the American people, which is an interesting position that they held then, given what they're doing now. Now look, do I think this is an airtight argument saying, well, these Democrats said X about impeachment then, and they're now pushing an impeachment now, so therefore they're hypocrites and we shouldn't listen? I'm not sure it's quite that clean, right? Because you have to look at the circumstances of the two impeachments. The Democrats were saying at the time, this was the president misleading about a sexual affair and allegedly obstructing justice over a sexual affair. That's not something worthy of kicking a president out of office and overturning the will of the people. Whereas in this case, it is, they're arguing, such egregious misconduct by President Trump on U.S. foreign policy, which they would call actively seeking campaign meddling from a foreign country, that is more serious. I don't think that if you're opposed to one impeachment, you have to be opposed to every impeachment forever. Right? I think the facts on the ground, the facts of the case matter. So it's not automatically hypocritical. Even though the argument that they made about refusing to accept the will of the people, I think that is pretty ironic. It is rich with irony, given the fact that many people in the Democratic Party have not accepted the voice of the American people in 2016. They never have. And that's why we've had 3 straight years of investigations and controversies, some of which just did not pan out at all. And that's why I understand why so many people on the other side of this say this is just another made-up, politically motivated attack on the president that they've been out to get from day one. Now, we had Ken Starr on the show yesterday. He pointed out, in his estimation, the difference between back then and now is that President Clinton broke several laws. He lied under oath. He obstructed justice. Those are crimes. And the special counsel, the independent counsel, recommended prosecution for those crimes. And that's how impeachment really got rolling. In this case with Trump, I don't think any crime has been established with what he did on that phone call with Ukraine. I hate that he's out there saying that the Chinese should investigate Biden, and so should the Ukrainians. He said that. I played the clip for Congressman Crenshaw. I disagree with the congressman that this is nothing, that this is fine. You shouldn't A sitting president, just think of it this way. If a Democratic president were caught on tape asking a foreign government to investigate the family of a top Republican rival in advance of an election, in the context of a conversation about the relations between those two countries and reciprocity and military aid, I'm not saying there was an explicit quid pro quo. If one is proven, then Trump's in real trouble. I'm saying it's implicit. If a president asks for something and it's a favor that would benefit him politically, that is not appropriate. I think you can make the case that that is, and as I cited earlier, the USA Today poll, most Americans believe that is in fact an abuse of power. Is that impeachable? Or, as all of the Democrats in that soundbite said 21 years ago, is this a grotesque tearing apart of the country to overrule and overthrow the outcome and results of a free and fair election because, in this case, Democrats hate the president more than they love America, I believe is what Chuck Schumer said about the Republicans back then, in that long montage that we played. Then you have the issue of Adam Schiff. And I share a lot of the sentiments that we heard from Congressman Crenshaw about Schiff. I think he is not credible. I don't think that he's honest. We brought you the breaking news yesterday, right before our show. New York Times reporting that the whistleblower came to a member of Schiff's staff. Before he filed the complaint, he went to Schiff, Team Schiff initially. And then that staffer went over and told Schiff, and eventually they told this would-be whistleblower, eventually the whistleblower, to go back, get an attorney, and go through the process of the Inspector General. Now, there's controversy about Schiff's knowledge. There are now more questions about, is that the extent of his knowledge or involvement in this? I'm not convinced that that is the extent of it. That's what the New York Times has reported so far. But that's the evidence that we currently have. CBS News had an important report from the Senate Intelligence Committee. So you have Chairman Burr, a Republican, the ranking member Warner from North Carolina and Virginia, the two of them respectively. Their staff said, actually, in this case, if a potential whistleblower came to Schiff, the appropriate course of action by the book would be to tell him, go get a lawyer, go through the Inspector General. So it seems as though there's an agreement on the leadership of the Senate Intelligence Committee that in this particular case, Schiff played it down the middle, or at least did what he was supposed to do in terms of protocol. But there are still a few things that I would like to say about this, and a few problems from the perspective of Schiff's conduct. Number one, I am curious about the whistleblower, who, I would say, as an aside, we learned from the Inspector General there were credible concerns about this person's political motivation. There was some evidence that this person was aligned with or rooting for a rival campaign against Trump. So the whistleblower is someone who wants Trump to lose, is what the Inspector General found, while also finding that the information was credible because, as we now know, it was largely borne out in that transcript. But if this whistleblower was really interested in just wanting to make sure this was all done the right way and not for partisan reasons, why not go to Chairman Burr on the Senate side? I mean, it is well established, and I think there's a large consensus that the Senate Intelligence Committee has conducted itself with honor and bipartisanship and professionalism throughout the Russia mess, as opposed to the House side, which was just fraught with insanity, with one of the guiltiest parties being Adam Schiff. If you just want guidance from the intelligence side of Capitol Hill, at least go to Burr and Schiff. And if you have to pick one, Burr is clearly the one to go to if you have good judgment and you're not a partisan. I think this is probably another indication that this whistleblower is a partisan. all of that noise around the edges here. Who is the whistleblower? How did this process unfold?